Welcome, everybody, to Come Back to Love. We are on Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. I'm your host, Robyn Vogel, a love and intimacy coach, an IFS therapist, and the creator of Ready for Love in 90 Days. This is a sacred place where we explore the real, raw, and beautiful journey of coming home to love, starting with ourselves and extending to the relationships we long to heal, deepen, or ignite. Each week, I share powerful tools, heart opening stories, and transformational insights to help you release the old patterns that keep love just out of reach. Whether you're healing from heartbreak, feeling stuck in familiar dynamics, or simply craving deeper connection, you are in the right place. Welcome again to Come Back to Love. This is our weekly show. We're live on Thursdays at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We are on Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. And today I have very special guests. They are dear, dear friends of mine, Penny Gold and Michael Trachman. And I am so excited about this episode because we are going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, relationship, couples, alchemy, and what all that means, and the amazing work you've been doing in the world. And I'm excited for our listeners um, to take all of this in. So, for those of you that are listening, that are in a space to be sitting down and relaxing, I invite you to grab a journal, a pen, a glass of water, a cup of tea. So you're going to want to be taking notes on this one. And for those of you that are listening in the car or while you're walking, welcome. And welcome, welcome, Penny and Michael. Thank you for being here.
You're
Our
welcome.
pleasure. Thank you.
So tell us, let's just start with like, what is relationship alchemy? I think you've been doing this work for a long time with couples, and each of you doing your own versions of work, and then coming together as a couple and doing work with couples. But let's start with the definition of what's relationship alchemy.
You me?
You.
So, relationship alchemy to me is about helping couples transform a relationship that was like, okay, pretty good to magic. And that's the alchemy. It's taking kind of good enough to wow. Because, fairy tales always end up with they lived happily ever after. But then once they're in that lived happily ever after, the day-to-day of children and chores and jobs and getting older and this and that and mortgages and, whatever and separation happen. They're not in that same romantic space. So in Relationship Alchemy, we help couples go from it's working to wow, this is amazing. This is what I dreamed of.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time, couples don't even realize we have a lot of cultural beliefs about how, well, you've been together for so long or you're so old now, you can't expect it to be magic anymore. So we wanted to sort of bust through those myths with people and say, no, we can wake up that love again, that excitement and passion, and bring that back into your everyday life.
Mm, that sounds good. What's standing out for me to touch on is the fantasy of that early childhood messaging. I think maybe Michael, you said something about, you know, the prince and the princess and the magic that we get shown in, cartoons and rom-coms when we're young. And how has that impacted people today? Like, how does that impact us as children into our adult life?
Exactly.
That's a good question. I think that, a lot of times what happens is people have these expectations about what a really good relationship looks like, and somehow it looks like that fairy tale. It should. And then people get disappointed or they feel like they're doing something wrong or their relationship isn't good enough because it doesn't match those fairy tales. So it's like, I always talk to people that we're working with about how it's not about having things perfect. It's about how to deal with real life and the arguments that might come up or the disagreements or the times when you're down and having a hard time or challenges. It's more about how do you deal with them? How do you deal with them? How do you recover? Where's your resilience? How fast can you get over the fights faster? Can you come back to love faster as you work with people? And that's what healthy is all about. It's not about always being perfect at all.
Hmm.
And to me, so fairy tales, which is sort of the essence you're pointing to, was what we pick up with children. We kind of have a sense that if the fairy tale is not all golden and gilded and bejeweled and rainbows and unicorns, that we haven't achieved that fairy tale. And so then we go to the other end, which is the having a practical relationship, almost like you're roommates with kids and shared income and you go on dates. And that's sort of at the other extreme. And what I believe is we can create the fairy tale elements of a relationship, but it's not going to be like, okay, we never argue every day. He looks like, I don't know, the prince and she looks like the princess. And etc. There will be friction, there will be the real things of life, but all those real things of being human will be held in a context of a fairy tale, of a romance that is being intentionally co-created as a romantic dream.
Hmm. Thank you. How do people know? I'm just taking in your response. I'm always trying to imagine what our listeners are thinking and the questions
Mm,
that they want to answer, the questions they want answered.
mm.
And I wonder, like, how do couples understand the context of their own relationship? Like, I find that sometimes couples, they're just one or the other's feeling unhappy, and they might point to some things that they feel unhappy about, which maybe you can elaborate on, or I can. But then what I hear you saying is like, that's normal. But I find also there's like some dissonance between what is actually quote unquote normal, part of just being human and being in relationship, and what is a sign that something is actually like needing attention and healing and growth.
Oh, absolutely. Because I think it's not about the fact that there aren't fights or disagreements or dissatisfactions that happen, but those things, especially the quiet dissatisfactions, the places where we stop sharing what we're really feeling with our partners, is something that does need to be addressed. And we help people kind of look at that and see how they can. First, well, actually, the first thing we really do is when people come, we bring them into a ritual that helps take them out of the everyday reality and begin to like open up their hearts and be able to see each other again in that kind of magical, original way where they remember the love that they had or the spark that's been there that may have gotten died down. So that at least so they have that connection again and the hope of that and the feeling of it. And then we'll guide them into being able to look at what are the things that aren't working? What are the things that you're not talking about, not dealing with in the relationship so that they can, and then they discover that in fact, in the context of this renewed seeing each other with open hearts and with being able to be more vulnerable and talk about what's going on, then they can find solutions that they didn't have. And we give them tools for that too, you know.
Yeah, so I would put what Penny said to the two phases she was talking about. So phase one is remembering, right? So let's say, for example, a couple, one of them is feeling like they're drifting apart, or, that, maybe one of them feels, oh, spiritually we're going in different directions, or there's not enough time together, or whatever. So let's say they then take a beautiful vacation, sort of like a second honeymoon quality, wherever they go somewhere in the world that's truly beautiful, but it's to be time with each other. Even if they go see, touristy things, it's to be with each other. They have great, maybe dinner and drinks on the ocean, whatever it might be. And in that experience, it brings back to them the, wow, that's why I chose you. Wow, that's what it feels like to be with you. Right? Wow, that's what I want in my life. Wow, this is who I can be for you, and vice versa, right? So that's the phase one, the remembering. And then you come home and you have a choice point. You can either say, I'm remembering that and I am going to build on that. And maybe we'll even commit to, every year going on a vacation like that so that I can always hold that feeling, maybe diminished because it won't be as strong as it was on the vacation, but still its essence will be there and I'll remember that I was there. And then from there, I can then say, okay, so if that's the context for holding that, remembering that in love that we felt during the vacation that reminds us of the eternal love from when we first met, then what can we now do in the day to day to be feeling that and living that and creating that? And that's when we get to step two, which we overall call creating and being the author of the story of us.
Hmm. Okay, good. I'm glad we're slowing this down. So, the first piece I have to ask, how do you support people in remembering? Because of course that's what everybody wants to remember. Oh yeah, wait, I used to be in love with that person, but now when I see them, I just think about all the things that irritate me. Um, sometimes. And and can be hard to get back to that initial, you
Yeah.
know, wonder and awe and connection. So what's the magic? How are you guys offering that and
Well,
how do you help?
one of the ways that we do it, have done it, is we have a weekend retreat that we do with couples. So first of all, they're making a choice to come together to be able to look at what's going on. So they're already kind of starting the work of we're giving ourselves this opportunity and this time for one another and for our relationship. And then we bring them into ritual space that is kind of like a magical. And we often do something that's very ornate. We might have a lot of roses and chocolate and fruit and
Mm,
special rituals that you don't normally do. And we might have something that is a little heart opening, like a ceremonial cacao that we do a ceremony and people find that they have an open heart, they're more relaxed and they're more able to, it just brings them back into that space of magic with one another. And we focus the ritual really on it's on remembering and on giving and receiving and feeling adored and feeling the devotion of that relationship coming back. So it just kind of awakens those memories and that puts them in that state of energy and being together.
So, yeah, so, there are what we call sacraments, things like cacao. They're ceremonial. This is not Hershey's chocolate. This is not even, Nestle's hot cocoa mix. This is like cacao that we get from Peru that's grown by organic farmers who pray over this cacao. And these class of sacraments, we call them, are what we call heart openers. A
mm,
heart opener is something that you take like cacao. It could also be breath work, but we like working with cacao that has you feel differently. It has you feel that your heart is open. It has you feel how much you love the other person. You know, so by doing that, that's where the kickoff happens. So they get into a state where they can re-feel the feelings that have been submerged.
mm,
Then within that, you add various rituals. So, for example, while you're feeling that, imagine if I then, while Penny and I are feeling that, I take a bucket of not, a bucket of rose petals
mm,
and throw them a few at a time and say, "Oh, I love you," or "I want to hear what you have to say," or "I'm sorry for all the times I didn't listen," or "I hurt your feelings." Imagine how that would land for Penny while her heart is open and my heart is open, how that would land for her. So we have a whole series of rituals and exercises, like remembering their history together. How did we first meet? What were some highlights? All kinds of things that together with this heart space truly brings them back and reminds them, brings it into the present, that feeling that they once had that they thought can't come back, and reassures them, yeah, it can come back when you take the time out and you have the special alchemy, the special magic that things like our weekends can provide for people.
Yeah.
wow. Yeah, it's kind of a dream come true for couples because, it's true what you said that a lot of people don't think that it's possible. And I want to say to our listeners that the last retreat that Penny and Michael did, there were some friends that participated and they did come out and say that their whole relationship was changed and they were back to being in love with each other again and hopeful again and having great sex again and being intimate and yeah, they just they seemed like they completely turned their relationship around. So, and they weren't the only ones who told me. So, um, yeah, it sounds magical,
Yeah.
and but
Yeah.
it's also grounded in reality.
Yeah. We had a couple that was there that at one of the retreats, and they had been married for 25 years, together for over 30 something years. And literally, as they're leaving, they looked at us and they said, "Wow, this is the best thing that we've done for our marriage, other than the weekend that we got married. That
Mm,
was the
oh my gosh,
best
It was the
thing
best
we've,
weekend
best
ever. Yeah.
weekend ever."
I have the
And
chills. Amazing. Mm.
Yeah. Also told us that particular couple also told us, well, the wife said, I kissed my husband and he kissed me like we haven't kissed in 20 years.
Oh my gosh, more chills for me.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So basically, you've kind of, without giving away the details, because of course we don't want to give away the details. We want people to be so intrigued that they want to come to the next one. Um, and hopefully they will. Of course, all of our listeners, shout out to read the show notes and get more information. But it's like it sounds magical, but it's very steeped in, of course, both of your, and we'll talk about like your roots in a moment, but both of your mastery and skills around bringing people into a sacred space. I'll say judiciously using sacrament to support heart opening, and also a mastery around inviting people through structured exercises into a space where they can actually heal and open their hearts again to each other. And that is actually magical, but it's also steeped in psychology and shamanic healing and the other things that are true about the both of you. It's not like, you're just starting this work. You've both been steeped in healing methods for a very long time. So let's pause for a quick commercial break and we'll get back to that piece when we come back. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody. It's Come Back to Love Radio. We are on Dream Vision 7 Radio Network today, and we are with Penny Gold and Michael Trachman talking about the magic of relationship alchemy. That might be a little redundant, but that's okay. We're talking about the magic of the healing work you are doing with couples, and I would love our listeners to hear a little bit about each of you, like your history and what you're bringing, because some people are watching, but many, many, many people are listening. And I'd love them to hear, like Penny, you have been working in this field of psychology for a very long time.
I'm a psychologist by training, and since, well, almost 40 years, I think, at this point, I've been in this field, working with people. And it wasn't until after I got ended my first marriage, where, it's too bad I didn't know what I know now, but and that's okay, because now I'm in my wonderful second marriage.
Yes.
And for 24 years now with Michael. And we that I found the world of personal growth, really, and more away from more academic psychology. So at that point, I also took on learning about sacred sexuality and working with couples, and began to teach um, sexuality, spirituality, and shamanism around the world, and have, entered just the world of really being interested in how do we help people from a more experiential, somatic, and real way. Can I bring the skills of psychotherapy into that realm and help people really grow and flourish and become their best selves? And we just really love working with couples. I think that you know, I think that we want people to be able to be in long-term relationships and really love being in them and have fun. Yeah.
Yes. Especially like 50% of the couples of marriages, right, end in divorce in the US. So the
Right.
work
Right.
is really valuable. I mean, I'll let you speak in a minute, Michael, about your history, but just, when people get married, it's like their dream is to stay together. And
Hmm.
anything that you can do and that you are doing to support people in that is invaluable, not only for them, but for their kids and the family, etc. So,
And
For the
community.
world. And even I think that, one of the things actually too, because sometimes we don't have a lot of access to a lot of other couples and to really hear what's going on in their lives. And so we often feel very alone with our problems, and everybody looks good from the outside, and you don't know what's really going on. So one of the things that like is part of the magic and the medicine of these retreats is that people are within a group of couples and they get to see one another too,
Mm,
and the mirrors of the relationships, and they don't feel alone with what they're going through. And that also really encourages people and adds a lot of hope and energy to the work we're doing.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So true. And Michael, you have also had a wealth of experience, di slightly different than Penny's, but such a contribution to the work that you do together.
Yeah, so I'm an ordained rabbi. I come from a long lineage of rabbis, so like my dad and my dad's dad and my dad's mom's dad, like a whole. In fact, there's a street named after my great grandfather in Jerusalem, named after him. So I've come from this long lineage of mystical, shamanic, Kabbalistic rabbis. And my dad trained me for that from when I was a kid. Like he says it started when I was 3 years old. So that's
Wow.
really the lineage that I come from is this really old school, deep, mystical teaching in Talmudic, in theology and philosophy, and the Jewish religion is really a very, very down-to-earth, practical religion. It's about how to make community work, how to make families work. It's really its purpose, how to have a connection with God, how to have a connection with the community, how to have a connection with your family. It's really its goals. Um, and so that was that. And then somewhere in my career, I became a trainer and facilitator. And originally it was in high tech subjects. And then I started, but even when I was teaching high tech, it was really interesting. I'd go to these corporations and I could feel people struggle. So I would give them life coaching. And then they'd see me a few years
Mm,
later and they would say, what you taught me then, not the computer stuff, but the life skills, how to communicate, how to love myself, how to open even bigger horizons for myself, they stayed with me and they changed me. And
mm,
then as I moved beyond from, high tech to this world so that Penny and I can co-create and lead personal growth and personal healing um, for individuals and community and couples together, that became the expression of my heart. And as we're doing more and more couples work, it's so much fun because yes, you're combining the healing side of it for sure, but there's also the let's create something spectacular. Let's create something romantic. Let's create something that is so joyful for us, for our children, for our community, and for the world to see that it's just it's alchemy. It's like gold gift to.
So, yeah, so I'm just jumping in. So let's go to the part two because I want to make sure our listeners get that information. We talked about the part one and the remembering, the refeeling, all of that. So important. Absolutely the first step. And then you mentioned the second step. So can you share with us
You want to share a bit or me?
You
that
can speak
piece?
with the story of
Okay.
us.
So most people like in therapy or in psychology kind of try to solve problems. In coaching, it's a little bit creative vision, but mostly, it's like learn to argue fairer, or learn to argue better, or learn to argue in a way that's listening. And so it's focused on the negative. And what I believe in is, yes, you need those skills, of course, but what will really pull you forward is a positive shared story, a positive shared vision that when you live it, that is romantic, whatever your romantic vision is. So a shared, what we call a story of us.
Hmm.
So that story of us can be whatever you created, but unlike a biography or an autobiography where you write your biography after your life, here,
Hmm.
you're writing it before you live. So you say, okay, what is the story that we want to live into in the coming years?
Hmm.
And so then you become the artist of your life, as opposed to just a recorder of your life in story form. You're authoring your story not as a document, but as what you do in life. And as you create that story, which we call the story of us, that becomes the energy and the framework, the scaffolding that holds you in the day to day. So even if you get into an argument, you then go back and remember, I love her, and this is the story we're trying to create. So, do I really want to spend this time on this argument, or would I rather come back to love and so that we can continue in this fairy tale story, this romance, this in a way larger than life and yet real life story that we're co-creating?
Hmm. Nice. So, I wonder if you could give us an example of your own personal, if you're willing, story of us, because I imagine you have your own manifesto, because you're also teaching people to do that, it sounds like, in part two of your weekend retreats.
Yeah, yeah. Well, right now we went through actually the gift that we have for people. Part of it is for couples to go through a workbook that we've developed that starts to ask them the questions. It gives them at the end a certificate of their own at the beginning of the framework of their story of us, of their values, of what's important to them, of the way they want to be with one another. Ours, we're starting this year is looking at the bigger value of being a sacred teamwork partnership here. And
Hmm.
so so we've been talking about what does that look like and what kind of, and then we look at what are the actions that we want to take that are going to do that. What are the qualities that we want to have more of in terms of like the kindness and generosity to one another? What's our devotion to our relationship and the work that we're doing together? And how does that nurture both us and the people that we work with?
Mm. I would, I think I tend to be sometimes more abstract than Penny. So,
Hmm.
I would say, our story of us is, here we have a shaman, that's me, and an oracle, that's Penny.
Hmm.
And as but that's sort of the archetypes we're trying to live into. And that's a big part of story is finding archetypes that are fun to
Hmm.
live into. So
Yeah.
I'm taking on the archetype of the shaman, and she's in the archetype of the oracle. And our story is we're living a partnership to help people fall in love with each other again and create that life for themselves. So our story is we're helping other people have the same story. So that's our story. We create community, we create weekend retreats, we learn more and more and more about how to design really impactful exercises or
Ritual.
rituals and then we practice those rituals ourselves. So our story is living these tools and this approach both for our own enjoyment and so that we can share it with the world. And that's our story.
Mm, beautiful. And I imagine, because you referred to it a little bit, like the story can be updated, like, right? Like whenever it's time and things are kind of shifting, there might be time to rewrite or add to the
Hmm.
Yeah,
story
yeah,
of
yeah.
us.
And that can be both because a shift in phase in life, let's say empty home, empty nest syndrome, it's obviously a shift in life,
Right.
retirement, getting older, but it can be monthly or quarterly or annually that you go and revisit, maybe around your anniversary or every Valentine's Day or whenever it might be, you might say, hey, let's revisit. And let's say, are there new rituals we want to put in place? Are there values that we want to declare our shared values? Are
Mm,
there new ways of being romantic with each other and cherishing each other and receiving love from each other and giving love to each other
Right,
that can expand our capacity for love?
right.
So, yes, exactly, you're right. It's an ongoing process. Sometimes you make bigger adaptations, especially when there's shifts in life, big shifts in life, and sometimes it's just ongoing daily, quarterly, annually, or whatever makes sense.
Yeah.
yeah.
And we look for little practices and rituals that we can kind of bring into our daily life, our weekly life that really promote the story of us that we're trying to create. So we have something that we call like moments of love, where
Mm,
it's just like I might be walking by and I might go over and just like spend a minute making eye contact or having a long juicy kiss or a hug, just kind of to connect and remember that we love one another. Sometimes we will light a candle at the altar and just share blessings for each other for the day or the week. So there's a whole series of little things that we do that kind of keep that flame alive.
And we have a
nice.
little tool, which is called the word remember.
Mm.
All right, so this tool remember is if we notice that we're beginning to get to a place of friction between us, then one or the other of us will whisper remember. And remember is a code word, which means remember that we're in love. Remember that we are committed to our love for each other. So do we really want to go down this path of friction, or do we want to short circuit it really, really quickly so that we can go back to the way more enjoyable path of being in love with each other and feeling and living that. So that's just one tool is we learned how to use this one word, remember, to often shortcut when things are beginning to go awry.
I love that. And a long time ago, one of my long time ago beloveds said to me, it only takes one person to come back into connection. And I always remember that. And
Hmm.
that's a great example because it only takes one of you to say the code word to remind both of you, like, oh,
Hmm.
wait, would I rather be right or would I rather be in love? Or would I rather be
Hmm.
angry? Would I rather be in love? It's like such a great moment to pause and
Yeah.
reflect. And
Yeah.
sometimes we'd rather be angry, and okay, because that part needs expression too. But the constant, the not the constant, but the frequent reminders is actually what feeds. Like
Hmm.
a plant doesn't get watered once a month. It gets a little bit every couple of days, and that's what keeps it alive. And
Yeah.
And even if, let's say I want to be angry, and you're right, and it's not something that will just go away because of the word remember, but it
right,
will tend to diminish the amount of time, the duration of the separation. So maybe if in the past it would have taken us a week to get over it or longer, now maybe it gets down to 2 days or one day. Or just
A few hours.
or when we get up tomorrow morning, we'll be back in fresh, lovey, yummy space. So often it's instantaneous, but even when not, it tends to, for us, significantly shorten the length of that stress because we remember what we'd rather be.
yeah, so
Yeah.
important, so amazing. I'm just, as you're talking, reflecting on, I worked and still do with couples for so many years. And to
Hmm.
remember some sad moments actually where people were saying, yeah, I shut down and it lasted a month, or, we've been disconnected for 6 months, or, we haven't been intimate for 3 years. It's just like it hurts my heart because there
Hmm.
is so much that we can do. Um, you know, to not have that happen and or to repair when it does happen. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
and it's that's one of the things that's so nice about this work and the way that we do it is that we give people this reset button to begin with, where it gets them back into this state of remembering and
yeah,
actually feeling it, not just cognitively, but very viscerally. And from there, then with tools about what are the rituals that you can do, what are the practices, how do you fight better, how do you talk about the things that are hard to talk about. Then they have the tools to bring that forward and keep it going. So it's,
right.
Yeah,
yeah.
and we've all heard of the love languages. And so if you know your partner's love language, then you can so I'll give you an example. One of Penny's love languages is that she loves to be appreciated for her cooking. She loves to cook, and then
Hmm.
for me or whoever it is to eat it while it's warm, while it's delicious, and then and she just feels great
Yeah,
as a woman who's a great, gourmet chef. And so, many times, it's like she cooks and I'm like, I'm busy at work or whatever. But I often will say to myself, it's like, Penny cooked special today, and it will make her feel good if I come when she rings the bell, dinner is served, and not wait, till I finish the current task, which might be 20 minutes later. And I do that not because, objectively speaking, the food will be less nourishing 20 minutes from now or now, but because I know that that is speaking to her love language. So it's helping her feel loved. And she notices that. So she's
yeah,
noticing, oh, Michael is doing something, Michael is doing something to make me feel loved. And we both do that for each other. So
Yeah.
by knowing each other's love languages, you can be really sprinkling that in, and especially when you're feeling the beginning of just the beginning of a down energy, you sprinkle a little bit of love in that person's love language, and that helps bring both of you back up to connection.
Yes, yes. Thank you for dropping that in. I really value the five love languages and the way that it can help guide coming back to love.
Mhm, mhm.
Right.
Yeah, along with the tools of relationship alchemy that you are teaching to lots and lots of people and practicing yourselves. So let's take a quick commercial break and come back to what you have to offer our listeners. So, listeners, please stay tuned. We will be right back after this quick commercial. Welcome, everybody, back to Come Back to Love Radio. We're just on the last few minutes of our episode today with Penny Gold, Michael Trachman, and myself, Robyn Vogel. I am your host of Come Back to Love, and we are on Dream Visions 7 Radio. Shout out to Dream Vision 7 Radio. Thank you so much for hosting our show today and all year. So, how can our listeners get in touch with you? You mentioned a gift that will help them get started on the story of us, which feels so valuable.
Yeah. So basically, we have a website, michaelandpenny.com.
Oh,
So
easy
if
one.
you go to michaelandpenny.com, either the homepage or you go to michaelandpenny.com/couples, there a place where in exchange for your email address, we give you an entire workbook that is a date night. And it's a date night workbook to learn about each other's values and to co-create values and practices and boundaries. And the idea is to do this
Wow.
book with a glass of wine, maybe with some flowers, maybe like make it fun, maybe kissing each other every so often or dancing every so often with each other to music. So it's to create a date night where you are starting the beautiful uh, joy of authoring your story of us. And it's a workbook that leads you through questions like that. And then at the end, when you do that, you then can, if you want to, you can do it on paper if you want, but then at the end, you can also feed it back into a special computer program that we've created and that's free for you to use. And you give it your answers, and it gives you this document, which is a PDF that shows your nested hearts and shows all kinds of things. So now this one is called Michael and Penny, and our declared value for the coming quarter is sacred teamwork and adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then it has sections. So one section is which came from the workbook that we did, right? Our long-term dream, right? And then we say whatever is true for us about that. Our core values, whatever is true for us about that. Our rhythms, like lighting candles and blessing once a week, special date night once a week, cooking together, something interesting once a week. So those are rhythms, things we do with some regularity. Our
Mm-hmm.
principles, we repair fast and forgive quickly. We give spontaneous moments of love. We remember that we love each other and we are a team. Our boundaries, our 14-day action plan, and our mini vows. And so then what
Wow.
you do is so you get this from your answers. This is not a, one fits all. It's not one thing fits all. It's you as a couple think about in a romantic date night how you're feeling, what you want to be, that first step of authoring your story of us. And then you get this beautiful thing that's suitable for some people we know hang it on their fridge just as a reminder. Some feel it's more private and put it in their bedroom, but it's a way to remember, like, oh, Michael has as a mini vow, I continuously grow my love for you and love you even more. That was my vow to her, which actually is from
Okay.
Sufi teacher, and Penny
So,
has her vow. So this is basically you get this thing, a date night plus this I don't know what to call it, artifact that you can hang up that captures certificate.
I think it's a manifesto, and that people are
Mm,
printing it
Manifest.
out.
Yeah.
And for those of you that are listening, because most of our listeners are listening on audio, so basically you're going to go to michaelandpenny.com/couples, and you'll have access to this gift of beginning to create the story of us. But once you finish filling it out, which they are suggesting doing as part of a date night, absolutely 100%, yes, it looks like you can print it out and then you can post it somewhere so you remember, so that you can refer back to it. I mean, we all get lost in our lives, things happen, we get stressed, people get sick, kids are doing whatever they're doing, and we keep needing to find our way back to ourselves and to each other. And the visual reminder, whether it's on the fridge or on your pillow or, next to your bed somewhere, I think it's so valuable to actually not only the visual reminder, but then actually to go and read the words because we get, we get out of our thinking minds when we're stressed. And this, it sounds like, I love what you read, Michael, is like, oh yeah, wait, I committed to staying in my heart. I committed to repairing as quickly as possible. Like, oh yeah, I care about that. I value that. And this is such a beautiful way to not only remind yourself, but to remind each other and to continue crafting and living into the story of us. So, yes, thank you so much for that gift. I actually can't wait to download it myself and start working on it. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for this time and sharing with us your lives together, your years of experience creating this work together. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how it continues to unfold. And to our listeners, one more piece to our listeners that are wondering, like, well, wait a minute, they talked about something in person. I know that people are flying in and traveling in to wherever it is you are hosting your weekend, and that doesn't matter whether people are local to New England or not. They can, land and travel to where you're hosting in beautiful places.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we
Yeah,
can work with people remotely in some cases, but the retreats are really life-changing for people. And
yeah,
couples come out of it saying, like we said, every couple that's coming through says, wow, this has totally changed our relationship. It's totally changed our lives individually and as a couple. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Wonderful.
And I think
Awesome.
one of the other beauties for me about that is that it lasts. We were very surprised, like testimonials 3 months later and connections with people 6 months and 9 months later show that these couples are still benefiting from that, from the weekend. It's still there.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing, amazing. I mean, that's true transformation. So right there. Beautiful. Thank you so much for being on the show today. Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you to our listeners for listening in. We will see you again next Thursday at 1 a.m. or 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you to our show hosts, and I hope everybody has a beautiful day. Mwah. Sending lots of love.
Mm.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.